YouTuber BitBoy has been threatened with contempt of court by a federal judge in Florida if he keeps sending tweets harassing or intimidating the attorneys in a class action lawsuit where those attorneys are suing him over supposed endorsement and promotion of Sam Bankman-Fried's now destroyed and defunct FTX. So BitBoy, if you don't know, has been involved in this lawsuit. He's been sued in a class action. I did a very long video about this explaining what the class action is and the background of what's been going on here, which is that the attorneys in the case have been receiving a number of threats, and some of them very serious. And BitBoy has been all over the internet, kind of going a little bit crazy, posting tweets, posting videos, making a big show of how much he dislikes this class action, and nobody likes getting sued, so that's not surprising. But he was ordered to show up to a federal court hearing, and he decided that he was going to react in a way that is never, ever, ever a good idea, in particular if you are being ordered to show up to a federal court hearing to talk about death threats that have been forwarded to the FBI for investigation. So I'm going to show you what's been going on here. If you want to get a full explanation, you can go and look on the full video that I did, which I'll have a link to at the bottom and probably an end card showing you how to get to it. So there were a lot of emails that were vaguely threatening or that were could have been interpreted in ways that were perhaps not violence. This is the one that I think sent the judge into a not very happy mood. And certainly nobody who sees this, if they're a federal judge, is going to be happy seeing something like this occurring on one of their cases. This is an email submission or form submission that was sent to the attorneys who are representing the plaintiffs in the class action. And it's from what is pretty clearly a fake, or looks like a fake name and fake email account, especially when your phone number is 12345678890. Probably not a real contact information. But what did this submission say? It said, "You're choosing war with an anonymous community while you yourself are not. Only a couple Bitcoins get you and your family shot. Please be careful. These people are dangerous and you have provoked them." Now, the FBI is investigating this right now. I can promise you whoever did this is probably going to get found, because whoever anonymous you think you are, you don't want to have the FBI investigating an email like this. The local police were contacted for the attorneys and their families. There are obviously saying that their family could get shot over this. And no one knows who really sent this right now. Was this someone who was, BitBoy had been going on these rants. And so obviously there's lots of people on the internet. Sometimes if people have fans, they could be going crazy. But again, whoever did this will get in a lot of trouble. And certainly the judge was not happy to see that this stuff was going on, and had issued some orders on this. And I'm going to show you the first one and how BitBoy responded to that. And as an attorney, I can tell you never, ever, ever decide that this is a good idea. What we're looking at here is the first order that was entered by the court, the federal judge, after having heard a submission by the plaintiff's attorneys which attached a bunch of documents showing that they were getting all kinds of crazy submissions on their website. They were getting harassing calls. And Ben Armstrong, which is the real name of BitBoy, had been sending them some messages and calling them. And his calls were not as sort of, the ones that are at least attributed to him were not as sort of over the top as that threat that we just saw, but they were still, he sounded very angry, and he was making some angry public posts, and that's all outlined in my previous video. So what did the judge do when she saw this order? So this is an order to appear and show cause. What is that? That is an order that you're going to show up in my court and you are going to show cause. Show cause means if there's anything that you might be doing wrong, the judge is ordering you to come up and explain to you why I should not do something to you in response to that. And this says, this is because the plaintiffs, which are those attorneys, had requested a conference to talk about this harassment towards plaintiff's counsel. As the court considered this, the court has heard from the plaintiff's counsel and this attorney who appeared on behalf of Ben Armstrong. And here's some background on this. It says that the plaintiffs filed the lawsuit. They allege that there's this sort of participation in promoting the FTX stuff that all went into total disaster mode and is now resulting in Sam Bankman-Fried potentially going to jail, certainly being prosecuted. And this says that shortly after the complaint was filed, the defendant began harassing plaintiff's counsel, Adam Moskowitz, by making numerous phone calls to Mr. Moskowitz's law firm, posting insulting and threatening messages on social media platforms, including Twitter and YouTube, and sending emails threatening Mr. Moskowitz and his family. And sorry, that's what plaintiffs allege. So the judge is not saying he did that. The judge is saying that the plaintiffs allege this. Because at least from reading their filing, and you can see this in my prior video, it's not entirely clear if the worst stuff was sent by BitBoy or just by someone who was inspired by BitBoy sort of going off on rants. I think BitBoy's version is that he was just talking about whenever he's sort of making these sort of pounding his chest and saying, I'm going to fight back or whatever. He's talking about a countersuit, which would be legal to do. And this says that the court directed the plaintiff's counsel to basically tell the court whenever Mr. Armstrong had been served with the lawsuit, which means he would know about it, and that the plaintiffs filed all these materials saying that BitBoy is making daily violent threats directed at the counsel and against the plaintiffs. And so the court ordered BitBoy to personally appear on April 20th, 2023, for a status conference, which is just a conference to address this stuff. And then basically, even though he was ordered to appear, he failed to appear at the hearing. And his BitBoy's attorney says that he's been hired by Mr. Armstrong, which is BitBoy. He says that BitBoy was aware that he'd been ordered, but the attorney could not explain why his client had not appeared as directed, and BitBoy did not submit any kind of written response or present any kind of evidence to the court and all this. And so Mr. Moskowitz goes in there. This is the plaintiff's attorney. He says he's in fear of his life, his family's safety, because of all these messages. There's a paralegal that sort of authenticates this email that was sent. And the counsel for BitBoy says, look, I'm sympathetic towards your concerns, but any threats BitBoy is making are threats of litigation, not physical harm. And then starts arguing that BitBoy has First Amendment rights. And your First Amendment rights are not absolute. And that's what the judge starts going into. Especially in the context of a lawsuit where something like this is occurring. It says courts have made a distinction between communication and harassment. The difference is one between free speech and conduct that may be prescribed, which is prohibited. That's what prescribed means. Accordingly, courts do have the power to enjoin harassing communication, which means the court can order you not to go harass the other side. This says the court finds that plaintiff's counsel has presented sufficient evidence to demonstrate that BitBoy had crossed the line from civil communications with counsel, which means sort of being polite and talking to them, to harassment. And that has occurred in the form of repetitive phone calls and threats with either direct or indirect or real or perceived to the safety of the plaintiffs and their lawyers. So the court kind of concludes and says, First Amendment rights, and in particular the right to free speech, are vital and warrant the strongest protections, but they cannot be used as a shield to defend harassing, threatening, and dangerous conduct like that engaged in here. BitBoy's conduct at issue is not only dangerous, but is precisely the conduct courts have prescribed rather than protected. By failing to respond to plaintiff's filings and failing to appear before the court, defendant Armstrong, BitBoy, has given the court no basis to find otherwise. The court then says, look, on the 20th when it issues this order, you're going to show up in 4 days, and you better show up to show cause now as to why you should not be held in contempt of court for violating my order. Because the order said show up, and he didn't. And what did BitBoy actually do instead? And then it also orders him to not harass counsel. What did he do instead of showing up on this April 20th hearing as he was ordered to do? Well, I'm going to show you that, and you can just instantly tell it is a horrible idea what he actually did. So the way BitBoy thought was a good idea to respond to a federal court order saying come and show up or else was to post this on Twitter that says, I'm supposed to be in court today. I'm not. Why? Because I don't give AF. Recklessness sponsored by stake.com. So he has to throw the promo in there while he is, giving a little bit of a middle finger to a federal court. That is never a good idea. Speaking as an attorney, I can tell you, and you probably do not need me to tell you this, that is a bad idea. When a federal judge says, come before me right now because death threats are being made to someone in this case, you better show up, and you just decide you're going to go on the beach and make faces like this and go on Twitter and make jokes about it, it is not a laughing matter and not a good idea. And we will see what actually happened. BitBoy decided after, I guess, discretion is the better part of valor, and he decided to actually show up on April 24th and sort of plead contrition. So let's see the court's order about that hearing. So now we're on April 24th. This is the day BitBoy was told, okay, you better show up or you're going to be in contempt of court. And what does the court say in this one? So it's an order discharging a show cause order. What that means is, okay, you have shown me a reason why I'm not going to hold you in contempt. And if you don't know what contempt is, it's real bad. Being held in contempt by a judge means you're going to get some kind of punishment, and often that punishment will be you will go sit in a prison cell for sort of disobeying a court order. That is what can happen. And what's going on here is, I can tell you, is absolutely serious enough that if a judge just sees this guy keep doing this, BitBoy is going to end up in a jail cell. And like that is almost a certainty. This says that the court ordered BitBoy to appear on April 24th to show cause why he should not be held in contempt. The court considered parts of the record. The court heard from plaintiff's counsel and from defendant Armstrong, which is BitBoy, who personally appeared and read a statement on the record at a show cause hearing held on that day on April 24th. That the court then finds that BitBoy had complied with the show cause order because he showed up, and it orders that, okay, I'm not going to hold you in contempt, but that says that BitBoy is admonished to continue to comply with this court's April 20th, 2023 order. That's the one we just looked at, directing him to cease and refrain from posting or sending harassing and threatening communications, including paper and electronic communications and telephone calls directly or indirectly to plaintiff's counsel, Adam Moskowitz, his family, his partners and associates at the Moskowitz law firm, and any part of your counsel in this case. Failure to comply with this court's order will result in the imposition of sanctions, including contempt proceedings. So what does all of this mean in legal terms? What it means is we will probably not see any more drama from BitBoy online, because if he does, I mean, if he starts posting about this attorney or anything that could even remotely be considered encouraging people to threaten something or going off on them or whatever, he has crossed lines by not showing up to that court hearing and is risking jail. The court has been very clear. I may hold you in contempt if you violate this court order. I can tell you that death threats are like the most serious thing that could be happening in a lawsuit. Or I guess, there could be more serious things, but that is very high level. And BitBoy, by deciding that he was going to do this and go give this sort of crazy face photo endorsed by some random cryptocurrency, he did something that has not probably made the judge very happy with him. It's a horrible idea. Whether it's getting him views and clicks and stuff, what he really should have done is gone in, had his lawyers go in and fight the case if he thought it was bad. And I talk about that in my video, sort of the merits of the case and whether he has a point on this, on whether this lawsuit should have been filed on him or not. But if you don't like a lawsuit, you got to go fight it in court. And going on Twitter and saying stuff like go after the attorneys or whatever, go after people or anything like that is not going to make judges happy, because he is doing stuff that at a minimum resulted in people going and sending stuff like about assassinations paid with Bitcoin. That is never going to go over well. So will BitBoy go to jail? Not right now, but he is watch his tweets, I guess, and hopefully he'll behave, and hopefully people will tone this down, because when you get to this level of like literal threats of violence, that is way past what should be happening. So if you want to hear more crazy videos like this, or more updates from an attorney on different celebrity cases, then there should be some more videos on the end cards, and subscribe button if you want to click that and get in line for some more of them.